Welcome to BTV News Hour. I'm Angelina Mambo and it's Monday, the 9th of May, 2016. Here are our top stories. Buhari beware, ECOWAS court is not John Soho court. Know your limit. Catholic bishop asks Buhari to reduce presidential planes. Nigerian Senate panel backs importation of grasses for cattle. Herdsmen attack. Abia government revives Bakassi boys to guard rural communities. Militant list term for truce. Seek action on confab report. Sylvester Ude, aka Debe Ojukwu, can't ride on the back of the Chukwemeka Odumegu Ojukwu. The Nigerian government has been known for its recklessness, irresponsibility, and incessant breach and abuse of judicial processes. The question this time is, does the Nigerian government reserve the right to order around an independent body like ECOWAS? Is the tyrant in Nigeria's supposed democracy trying to overstep his bounds in Africa? We have to examine the recklessness of the Nigerian government in trying to make an absurd and illegal demand on the ECOWAS. It will be totally destructive for Nigeria to try to cajole the ECOWAS into ignoring a vital part of its responsibilities of protecting the interests of the oppressed, investigating and prosecuting human rights abuses, because Nigeria itself is complicit as well as a culprit in these vicious human rights abuses and crimes against humanity. Nigeria cannot continue its recklessness and hence should be put to order. The Nigerian government cannot ask the ECOWAS to look away while it continues its gross human rights violations, crimes against humanity, and breach of justice. Nnamdi Kanu is one of the numerous victims of this viciousness by the Nigerian government. He was kidnapped and illegally detained on the 14th of October 2015 and has been denied bail despite several outcries and court orders for his release. The government of Nigeria has continued to concoct charges whose evidence cannot be provided. Currently, it has resorted to delay tactics via his puppet John Soho, because Buhari vowed publicly on a television media chat that he would never release Nnamdi Kanu, which goes to show that he is deliberately disregarding the rulings of the court. It is becoming more evident that Nnamdi Kanu will not get justice in Nigerian court, especially the one presided by John Soho. Therefore, Nigeria should not try to prevent a superior body from serving justice, since it's practically incapable of administering justice against all its gross human rights abuses. Several attempts have been made to eliminate Nnamdi Kanu in prison, since they are unable to prove he is guilty of all the concocted charges against him. Nnamdi Kanu has only exposed the massive corruption inherent in Nigeria and has also awakened the Biafrans to demand their rightful place, since Nigeria has expired in December 2014. Nnamdi Kanu never fired a shot at anyone. His only tool was his registered Radio Biafra station, yet the Nigerian government intends to jail him unlawfully. How then can ECOWAS forsake the appeal by Nnamdi Kanu to address these issues and administer justice? Biafra reserved the right to freedom and self-determination and urgently needs her freedom, and Nnamdi Kanu deserves his right to freedom as well. President Muhammadu Buhari has returned to Nigeria from South Africa after attending the African Union Summit. The Bishop of the Catholic Diocese of Ekiti, Felix Ajakeye yesterday called on President Muhammadu Buhari to cut waste and reflect the mood of the country by reducing the number of presidential planes. The Catholic clergy reminded the president that time is no longer at his disposal, maintaining that time has come for him and his party to effect practical change and depart from sluggering. The cleric pleaded with the president to learn to follow due process and uphold the rule of law in the affairs of the country, no matter whose ox is God. The clergy, who emphasized the need for reconciliation in the country, advised Buhari and his team to thoroughly study the report of 2014 National Conference and act accordingly. The Senate Committee on Agriculture said on Saturday, the 7th of May 2016, that a permanent solution to the perennial crisis between farmers and herdsmen would lie in the importation of grazing pastures for cattle at designated places across the country. The committee, headed by former Nasarawa State Governor Abdullahi Adamu, welcomes the idea of importing grazing grasses and making them available to cattle to stop the movement of cattle from place to places in search of pastures and put an end on the growing spate of tragedies associated with it. He said that his committee was impressed that the main priority of the federal government of Nigeria on agriculture at the moment was to ensure that agricultural practices were appropriately and adequately facilitated. According to him, the Senate is also working to give necessary legislative support to the presidency to restore the lost glory of the agriculture sector in Nigeria. He stated that the government must face the reality of taking some serious and painful decisions to bring the crisis of herdsmen versus farmers to a permanent end, adding that there are no easy fixes to the problem. Following the raging attacks of communities across the country by Fulani herdsmen, Abia State Governor Dr. Okezie Ikpeazu has approved the deployment of the state vigilant outfit, Bakassi Boys, to all rural communities of the state. The governor also directed all monarchs in the state to nominate 10 youths to the local government commissioner to join a planned intensive training of the Bakassi vigilante for onward deployment to the rural communities. He said that they would assist in community policing under the supervision of the police. Okezie Ikpeazu also mandated the law enforcement agencies to search and screen all trucks and vehicles conveying livestock, food items, and persons into the state from any part of the country, as well as search and screen markets and settlements where livestock and dealers are to ensure security. Governor Ikpeazu's action was prompted by a clash between soldiers and butchers in Aba, which led to the killing of 2 Biafrans and almost led to an ethnic clash between Hausa Fulanis and the Biafrans. Apparently undeterred by President Muhammadu Buhari's order to the military to crush them, militants under the aegis of the new group, the Niger Delta Avengers, NDA, yesterday demanded some conditions that should be met by the federal government of Nigeria in order to ensure peace in the Niger Delta. The group, which claimed responsibility for the recent bombings of the Chevron valve facilities and the 48 inches trunk line supplying crude oil to Warri refinery, has declared that it will crumble the economy unless its demands are met. The militants demanded the immediate implementation of the report of the 2014 National Conference, or the country would be break up. They insisted that the ownership of oil blocks must reflect 60% for the oil-producing people and 40% for others, and that the nation's only maritime university located in the most appropriate and benefiting place, Okerenkoko, must start the 2015-2016 academic session immediately. They asked the Minister of Transportation, Mr. Rotimi Amechi, to apologize to the Ijaw and the entire Niger Delta people for his careless and reckless statement about the sitting of the university. According to them, the Ogoni land and indeed all oil-polluted areas in the Niger Delta must be cleaned up and compensation paid to all oil-producing communities. Sympathizing with indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, the NDA demanded that the leader of the group, Nnamdi Kanu, should be released unconditionally, as a court has ruled. Faulting the Buhari's anti-corruption campaign on the grounds that it is skewed in favor of his political associates, the militants said that all members of all the Progressive Congress, APC, who are indicted in anti-corruption related cases should be made to face trial like members of the People's Democratic Party, PDP. NDA asked Buhari, DSS, and Timi Prasilva to apologize to the people of the Niger Delta region and the family of the late former governor of Bayelsa State, Diepreye Alamieye Sega, for killing him with intimidation and harassment because of his party affiliation. It warned oil multinationals and foreign investors to observe this ultimatum, as their business interests in the country must be the first target of attacks. The Italian oil company Shell evacuation was carried out by 3 helicopters during the weekend. The evacuation saw 98 key personnel airlifted by helicopters from Eja OML-79, run by Royal Dutch Nigerian subsidiary Shell Petroleum Development Corporation, SPDC, where production of 90,000 barrels of oil per day has been halted. Sources said that a small group of staff was left on the platform to carry out skeletal operations. The staff and facility are offered protection by 2 gunboats belonging to the Military Joint Task Force. The name Ojukwu rings a bell whenever it is mentioned, not just because the People's General Dim Ikemba Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu became the first head of state of the Republic of Biafra between 1967 to 1970, but because San Lunis Ojukwu, father of General Chukwuemeka Odumegwu, was a notable citizen when the economy of Nigeria is being discussed. Now, a lion, they said, never give birth to a coward. He really gave birth to a lion in the person of Chukwuemeka Odumegwu. But can the same saying be made with regard to this moron that calls himself a son of the People's General, Debe Ojukwu? His true paternity is still being contested at the family cycle, to which we are inclined to believe that those who object to his claim as one of the Ikemba's son may not be totally wrong. A true son always strives to finish what his father started. But in the case of Debe Ojukwu, he has joined forces with the enemies of his father to rubbish his father's legacy. Surely this doesn't depict a character of a true son, and no wonder the entire Ojukwu family teamed up to write an open letter to him and rightly address him in his real name, Sylvester Ude, asking him to hands off Ojukwu's Transport Limited, a company he was employed as a manager. In Ikemba Ojukwu's will, which was made public after the 1-year period of mourning for the great leader, the name of this gold digger of a son was completely omitted. Was that an oversight? I doubt. We say so because an unknown daughter of the great general Tenny Harman, whom he had with a Hausa girlfriend, was not forgotten. So if this impostor is really the son of Ikemba Dim Odumegwu Ojukwu, why was his name left out of this will? The Hausa Fulanis are determined to exterminate the Biafrans from the face of the earth. And as such, anyone romancing with the Hausa Fulanis-led government of Buhari is a #1 enemy of Biafra, just as Ikedife, Russia Sokorosha of Imo State, Governor Obiano of Anambra State, and a host of other political bootlegs of Igbo extraction. They have sold their birthright for a pot of porridge in exchange for the freedom of their people and their fatherland. Dozie Ikedife claims to be the leader of IPOB before IPOB destroyed him and his claim. But he led a delegation of some hopeless and shameless disgraceful Igbo elders to the Hausa Fulani government of Buhari in Abuja to beg for recognition and to feed even on the crumbs that fall off the table of the Hausa Fulanis. What a shame. Likewise, Debe Ojukwu, whose acclaimed father spent 13 years in exile for his fight for the freedom of his people, was happy at presenting Ngige as an APC governorship candidate for Anambra State in the last election. Ngige winning the election would have amounted to a no-hold-barred in ushering in Boko Haram terrorists, and that would have spelled doom for the state. It is really ridiculous for an acclaimed freedom fighter to meddle in the politics of the country he wishes to be free from. No wonder the entire Ojukwu family were unanimous in disclaiming him, because no true son of Biafra will opt to serve a Hausa Fulani for anything in this life. The Ikemba Dim Odumegwu Ojukwu disclaimed this impostor and asked him to present himself for a DNA test, to which he refused to appear. If he is sure of his paternity, why was he reluctant to show up? Now, this confused dying old man is claiming that Nnamdi Kanu is not the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra IPOB. What was Debe Ojukwu's reaction when Buhari said that IPOB is an unlawful society and accusing Nnamdi Kanu of belonging to an unlawful society? This confused man, Sylvester Ude, said that Chief Justice Eze Ozubu, the former Chief Judge of Enugu State, is the leader of IPOB, and that the next in command to him is Dr. Dozie Ikedife. Now I have a question for Sylvester Ude. When Buhari declared IPOB an unlawful society, the people he claimed to lead, what was your statement? What were the actions or inactions of these perpetrated leaders? Nnamdi Kanu was arrested and charged for belonging to an unlawful society, but their claimed leaders, the duo of Eze Ozobu and Dr. Dozie Ikedife, were walking freely. What sort of leaders are they? If Sylvester Ude says he and the other people he mentioned are leaders of IPOB, let them issue a directive to the people of Biafra, or a directive to Radio Biafra London. These confused fools claim that they established Radio Biafra, which the Nigerian government called a pirate radio. What was their response to that? When the Nigerian government, through the Ministry of Communication of Nigeria Broadcasting Commission, threatened to crush and jam Radio Biafra London, what did these leaders of IPOB do to forestall that? People who love to reap where they did not sow, just as this Sylvester Day wanted to fraudulently reap from Dimike Bodumegu, Ojukwu's asset, but was properly addressed by the general as a bastard, which he really is, and denied every inheritance. That's all for today. Thank you for joining us on BTV News Hour. We will be back tomorrow.